All right, seventh grade. Here is lesson 20, subtracting multi-digit integers. All right, seventh grade. When subtracting multi-digit integers, you need to remember that to subtract two integers, change the second integer to its opposite and then add. So you're going to add the opposite. All right, here we go. Right, Ravio had a checking account balance of negative $23. After making a deposit, his balance was 45. How much money did Ravio deposit in his account? So there are two ways that you can think about this problem. We have negative 23 plus something equals 45, or 45 minus negative 23. Now, to me, it's easier. It's a lot easier to do a problem this way instead of trying to think about what. All right. So it says when subtracting large integers, use the same shortcut rule that you learn for subtracting smaller integers. You change the second integer to the opposite, then add, or add the opposite. So if I take 45 plus a positive 23, I get 68. So Ravio's deposit was $68. When subtracting, the shortcut rule always works because addition and subtraction are inversely related. Here are some examples. If I have 64 minus negative 13, it's 64 plus 13, which is 177. Negative 176 plus positive 150 is negative 26. I'm adding the opposite. It's the inverse. I'm adding the opposite. So when we come down here, it says subtract 300 minus negative 200. What is the opposite of negative 200? It's a positive 200. Add the opposite of negative 200 to 300. So I'm going to take 300 plus 200, and I'm going to get 500. So 300 minus negative 200 is a positive 500. Make sure you have this filled out before going on to the next page. All right, now, here's the easiest thing you could do, and I'm going to do this in a color of blue. You are going to go in and you're going to change each of these problems into adding the opposite. Add the opposite. And it only applies to the number that comes after the subtraction sign. I'm going to add the opposite. Now, once I've gone through and added all of the opposites, I can go through and work out the problems. Now, yes, you can punch it in as 12 minus 22 on your calculator. That's your choice. You could punch it in as 12 plus negative 22. You could punch it in as negative 30 minus negative 22 or negative 30 plus 22. You could do it in your head. Now, when I take 12 plus negative 22, if I think about that line, I am going to end up at 10 because I'm going to think I'm going to go to 12. Then I'm going to add a negative 22, which goes to the left. So I get an answer of 10. All right. So you are going to go through and either do this by hand by changing them to adding the opposite. You can go through and change them through add the opposite, punch it on your calculator, or you can just take the problem as is and punch in on your calculator. Down here on number 10, it says Yurkio thinks that subtraction of two negative numbers should always be a negative number. Can you think of an example where this is true? If so, write the example. Well, let's think about it. If I have a number of negative 6 and I'm subtracting from it negative 2, now I'm going to add the opposite. Actually, let me go back. I'm going to subtract 2. That is the same thing as saying negative 6 plus 2, which equals negative 4. And this way, if I punch in my calculator, I'm also going to get negative 4. So I subtracted two negative numbers and I ended up with a negative number, negative 4. It says, can you think of an example where this is not true? Well, if I have negative 3 minus negative 5 equals. Now, if I write that as negative 3 plus the opposite, I wrote that as negative, plus the opposite. So now negative 3 plus 5, that gives me a positive 2. If I look at my number line and do it, it's a 2. So do you think Yoshi is right? It's no. It depends on the value of the negatives of the numbers. Okay, so please make sure you have that filled out. Now, when you come down here, you have to remember deposits are positive numbers. Withdrawals are negative numbers. So if I'm going from 322 to 176, that's a smaller number. That means it's a negative. If I'm going from 176 to 280, that's a positive. Okay. So what you are going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to write how I get from 322 to 176. It's a withdrawal, but I don't know how much. So you got to think it's like saying 322 minus 176. And when I do that, I get 146. But it's a negative 146 when I write it over here. Then to go from 176 to get to 180, or excuse me, to get to 287, I'm going to do 287 minus 176. And with that, I'm going to get $111. But that's positive because my number got bigger. So over here, I'm going to write $111. Now, you need to make sure you fill out the other two. You're going to do this, get those finished. Don't forget to submit to me through Canvas when done. Good luck and have fun.